Hi there. Welcome to my podcast. I'm Janine. Thank you for joining. This is episode 162. It's amazing to me how much we know about our brain and how it works. You may have heard me mention some of it when I talked about meditation and also gratitude. In a recent episode, I shared my ski day experience with you. I also mentioned how much our brain loves newness, and I encouraged you to bring more novelty into your life. So recently, I came across a very interesting model that I want to make the topic of the next 2 episodes, and it involves some pretty interesting brain research, also called neuroscience. I think we all want to know more about how our brain works. It's the complexity of our brain that sets us apart from animals. And it's due to our brain we've been able to not only survive, but also advance as humans for however many thousands of years. Our brain drives everything, how we move, what we feel, and how we react. So the more we learn about our brain, the better we can adjust and make changes in our life. And not just any changes, but targeted changes that are based on an understanding of our unique makeup and our environment. I'm fascinated by this because science finally supports what many of us intuitively feel or know to be true. And I go back to meditation because it's a perfect example. Why does it feel so good? Why does it seem to calm us down and give us a more balanced feeling? Now we finally have science backing up what used to be just our intuition and subjective feelings. We know mindfulness and meditation reduces self-perceived stress. Mindfulness-like attention training has shown to increase thickness of the prefrontal cortex, which is a brain region associated with complex behaviors, decision-making, and shaping personality. So the common response we often receive from the doubters and the downers, it's all in your head, you can now nicely counter with, it sure is. Because it is with the responses that occur in the brain that we can explain many of our actual behavioral responses as well. And since the quest for you is not a real quest if it doesn't involve seeking transformation, it's important that we take cognitive aspects into consideration. I often speak about the integration of body, heart, and mind. The brain is part of our body in a physical sense, but it drives much of what we call the mind. Our world today is more interconnected than ever before. The ability to collaborate with people is a skill that we can no longer dodge, even if we coop up in our house and manage all our transactions online. There are still humans answering your emails and phone calls. So if you want to become a better you, if you want to live your life at your highest potential, if you want to make a difference in this world, then it becomes imperative how well you get along with other people. You can be the greatest writer, artist, performer, blogger, or preacher, but if you cannot manage the basic social aspects of interaction, eventually your best you will not be at its best anymore. Just look at the news. The most recent example is former Uber CEO Travis Kalanick, who managed with a stubborn sense of how people should feel, and he refused to see how they actually felt. And what happened? He lost his job over it. He's not the only one. Remember American Apparel? Dov Charney, the founder, had lots of people issues, and his company is not even around anymore. Highly intelligent, superb entrepreneurs and innovators, but socially incompetent. Not being able to work effectively with people eventually catches up with you, especially if you're so highly visible as founders and CEOs of companies often are. So in order to understand what drives the reactions and responses of others and improve cooperation, it's important to have a good understanding of our own motivations. Self-awareness is key. You have to understand who you are and how your responses affect others, and then be able to adjust. So in today's episode, I will focus on how cognitive responses drive our behavior. It's critical that we understand that first, And then tomorrow, I want to spend some time on an interesting model called SCARF that helps shine the light on how to collaborate more effectively with others. It's important for all of this that we understand that the main objective of our brain is to keep us alive. As such, it constantly scans the environment with this one goal in mind: survival. Hence, a primary objective of the brain is to predict where and how we can avoid threats and encounter rewards. And it does that by trying to make accurate predictions about our environment. The brain dislikes anything that is not certain. Ambiguity, doubt, uncertainty, not good. This is a big aha moment for all of us control freaks out there. We can blame it on our brain, which likes to have a sense of being in control of circumstances and our destiny. Stress occurs when we encounter circumstances that we're not able to control. We call these threats. When the brain perceives such a threat, the sympathetic nervous system is activated to initiate what is often referred to as a fight or flight response. Cortisol is released, which is a hormone that increases blood sugar and suppresses the immune system, so energy can be redirected to address the perceived threat. Other hormones are also released. You all know about and have felt adrenaline, which increases heart rate and restricts blood vessels, with the goal to increase oxygen to the lungs and blood flow to the muscles. So when you're stressed out and you feel your mouth go dry and your palms become sweaty, you're experiencing the sympathetic nervous system at work. And then there are other things that the brain perceives as rewards. Think about your basic needs: money, physical relationships, water and food, shelter. You feel good when you have these met. And then there are the not so obvious psychological and social factors that we also enjoy: predictability, social acceptance, a sense of being right or knowing the answer, opportunities for advancement of social standing, mastery of certain skills, novelty, and so forth. These are rewarding for the brain, and it will seek more of those. So in essence, we're always either moving towards something to satisfy primary needs or moving away from things which could cause us harm. The chemical dopamine determines how the brain processes reward and what is motivating to pursue. For our ancestors, rewards were found in meeting basic needs: water, food, shelter, and safety. Today, our primary needs have expanded to other things that people find rewarding, such as an attractive person, chocolate, and money. Just like the reward system, our perception of threats has adapted to modern life. A dissatisfied boss or low performance rating can cause a similar response as someone breaking into our house or following us at night. When our sense of safety is under attack, the neurotransmitter serotonin is released. Serotonin is considered a natural mood stabilizer. Under times of stress, it tries to get us back to normal. It's the chemical that helps with sleeping, eating, and digesting. When your serotonin levels are normal, you feel happier, calmer, more focused, less anxious, and emotionally stable. But when serotonin cannot keep up anymore because the stress is too severe or long-lasting, you will feel the consequences in your body. The famous knot in your stomach when you're nervous about a test, the sleepless nights when you're worried about something in your life. We can blame the chemicals in our body. So let's take this a step further. We can already do so much with this information. We know that the approach avoid responses is a mechanism designed to help us stay alive by quickly and easily remembering what is good and bad in the environment. Today's bad situations are rarely life-threatening anymore, but they are still perceived by our brain the same way. It's pretty easy to see that staying away from food that is spoiled or even poisonous is helpful in keeping us alive. But you may not know that the brain uses similar circuitry for interacting with the social world. And this is where things get interesting. We all experience social threats from time to time. Think of your workplace or personal life. A threatening boss or an unreliable partner can be perceived as a threat by your brain. Think of the times you experienced anxiety when you think that your boss doesn't like you, or when you were concerned about your partner not being honest with you all the time. Such threats result in reduced cognitive performance. Resources available for overall executive functions in the prefrontal cortex decrease. There's literally less oxygen and glucose available for the brain to function effectively. When you feel threatened, you may have noticed that it was harder to have a reasoned conversation or find intelligent and rational answers. We call it being emotional, but it really is a heightened sense of alertness. When you are agitated and under stress, it becomes challenging to see the more subtle signals required for solving those complex problems or having those difficult conversations. There is a tendency to generalize more, to err on the safe side, and staying away from opportunities that might be perceived as more dangerous or risky. Ever noticed how sensitive you become when you feel threatened in such a way? Jealous or concerned that your partner is hiding things from you, nervous and fearful in the presence of your boss, and then how you begin to evaluate every message and signal on the negative side? Clearly, this is not an ideal state for living and collaborating with others. However, this response is the default situation that often occurs in our life. Living with a threat, even while not constantly present, sends our brain into an alert state where it's always vigilant. You can now see why you may be easily triggered by small, often insignificant events, and it is much easier to react negatively by activating an avoid response than it is to help others think rationally and creatively, which would be the approach response. Our brain simply cannot summon the strength to do so when it's in flight response mode. This reminds me a lot of our discussion on willpower. When your willpower is challenged all day, it becomes harder and harder to resist things as the day progresses. Eventually, you run out of strength and the proper resources. Many psychological and brain studies have shown that the avoid response has much longer lasting effects than the approach response. Knowing that we are inherently more attuned to threats can help us be more alert to our environment and the things we expose ourselves to. Knowing that the news and negative people bring me down, I try to avoid both as much as I can. I ended relationships where I felt constantly threatened, not secured and not supported. And I have changed my attitude around situations, such as bad traffic or long wait times, knowing that those set me off into a tailspin. And you can do the same. Start looking at the people and situations in your life that cause you to live in an avoidance state. Such a state is characterized by withdrawal, a constant state of alertness, a problem mindset, and a feeling of weakness and fear. On the other hand, an approach response is synonymous with the idea of engagement. We know how good it feels. We feel motivated to undertake more difficult things, to take risks, to solve problems, and to develop creative solutions. We experience positive emotions, interest, happiness, joy, and desire. We are interested in the world around us and we want to learn. In this state, the brain is in reward-seeking mode. Activities that make us feel good release dopamine, and we experience pleasure and satisfaction. Our brain remembers these feelings and wants to repeat them as often as possible. Just take a look at your weekends or whenever you have free time. What do most of us do? We seek out activities that we know gives us pleasure and joy. We go out for good food, we visit places we enjoy, and we spend time with people that we love. The minimize danger and maximize reward principle is an overarching, organizing principle of the brain. It drives most of what we do. So I hope you found this helpful in understanding maybe some of the things that you do, some of the triggers that set you off, and just some of the behaviors that you have. A lot of it can go back to these very basic principles of rewards and threats. And tomorrow, we'll dive into the SCARF model to help us understand better how effectively navigate social settings. Until then, much love.